Hey everybody, how's it going? So I wanted to kind of go ahead and run down my NBA playoff predictions for the 2025 season. I'm sure my brother's going to go ahead and do his own, but I wanted to go ahead and just get mine out there as well, and we may end up discussing them at some point. Just something to keep in mind. We're just going to go ahead and jump into it. We're starting off with the Eastern Conference, and we have the Cavaliers versus the Heat. Um, Not really going to be a whole lot to say. The Heat squeaked in, with the playoff game. The Cavaliers should be able to go in there. It should be over in five, to be honest. But I can definitely see a sweep here. Um, should be, pretty one-sided. Not a whole lot to say. Donovan Mitchell had a great year. You know, we'll see what's going on with him, but pretty much I think it's decided. And then another series that the Magic are very good. I don't know that this is going to be really close. Again, I have Celtics in five. Um, I very easily see, Tatum and Brown averaging, putting up 60 combined. Um, yeah, Celtics are going to be rough to beat this year. They are my pick to go all the way. They are my team, obviously, but I still think I don't see anyone beating them. At least not in the East. I'll say that. And then next we have New York versus the Pistons. Now this actually might be a lot closer than it seems. Because if you look at New York, they can't really beat good teams. It seems. I believe they're like 9-1 versus the top three teams, which is the Cavs, the Celtics, and the Thunder. So that's just not uh, gonna do it in the playoffs if you can't beat good teams. And then obviously the Pistons had an amazing year. One of the best single season turnarounds, maybe in NBA history. Um, going from one of the worst records of all time to making the playoffs. As a sixth seed, didn't even have to do the playoff playing game. So just an incredible year from them. Um, if I have to give a prediction, I don't know. That one's tough. Um, Maybe I could see I could I'm gonna say either New York in six or seven, but I could see Detroit in seven as well. I think if it goes 7 games, it's in Detroit's favor. If Detroit can get to game seven, they will probably win the series. I'll say that. And then for the last matchup in the East, we have the Pacers versus the Bucks. Um, Probably Pacers are a good team. Bucks are just a better team. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think there's going to be a lot of close games. I could see, uh, you know, I could see a lot of things happening with this. I believe they are playing game one right now. Actually, they just started the game, so trying to get my predictions out. Before we have too much information. But yeah, I'll go ahead and take the Bucks in six. And I'll say it's six very hard fought games. Um, at the end of the day, I just think the star power in Milwaukee is going to be too much, having both Giannis and Dame. I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton can counter that. And then outside of Tyrese Halliburton, you know, your team isn't super great. And even him he's not the greatest player either. I don't have him top 10. And it's hard to do stuff in the playoffs when you don't have a top 10 player. They did get the 4 seed, but it's the East. I hate to say it. Um, so that's just where they're at right now. All right, and then finally going ahead and getting into the Western Conference, we have the Thunder and the Grizzlies. And I think it's really unfortunate for the Grizzlies because you know they they're a lot better than an 8 seed than a typical 8 seed. This is not a typical year for the West. Um, and I believe they're like something like 45-37, which is really good for an 8 seed. That like most years that probably gets you around like five at least. But they had to fight in the plan. So, but they got it done. But unfortunately, it looks like they're not going to be going much further. Going to get to Oklahoma City. Thunder just best record in the league this year. What can you say? They're just the overwhelming favorite. I have Thunder in five. I could do that. Then we have a really interesting matchup. Actually, this might be the best first round matchup, or at least the most interesting to watch. You have Houston going against Golden State. You know, Warriors. They're hot right now. They traded for Jimmy Butler. You know, they're cooking. But then on the other side, you have the two seed Rockets, who it's kind of just crazy for me to think they're a two seed. Um, I remember like 2, 3 years ago where they were like one of the worst teams in the league. They were fighting for the number one pick. I believe they got number two that year. So just to tell you how bad they were, and how good Ime Udoka is as a coach. He came from Boston. We loved him, but obviously, if you know, you know. Um, but one thing you can't deny is he knows basketball. He's a great coach. He's just a leader of men. Where people, I feel like they buy into him. I feel like there's different kinds of coaches. Where you give like Brad Stevens back when he was a coach. He's very X's and O's, and then you have coaches like Ime Udoka who they may not be the greatest on X's and O's. Not that they're bad, but it's just not their strong suit. But they're motivators. They get guys who want to go out there and who want to play with them. So he's a great coach. He hell of a job, hell of a year for the Rockets. With that being said, though, I don't know. I see this one going seven. Um, I think it's tough both ways. Uh, I think the Rockets are gonna. I feel like the Warriors are kind of are the favorite going into the series, even though they're seven versus the two seed. It's not a typical seven versus two. But I'm gonna say the Rockets are gonna win in seven. I think they're gonna pull it off. I think this will be the end of the Warriors dynasty. They've been trying to keep it going. It's kind of been like since 2022 when they won. It's been like questioning like are they still you know do they have any gas left in the tank, or is it empty? So we will certainly see about that. But uh, I think the Rockets are gonna put an end to that the little Jimmy Butler experiment in Golden State. And then we have the Lakers versus the Timberwolves, which is another crazy matchup. The West is just stacked this year. A lot of interesting basketball to be played. I feel like the East, there's not really many, super competitive series, but it seems like everything in the West, even the first series between Memphis and the Thunder, I could see being competitive. Um, but right now we have the Lakers and Timberwolves. Lakers had a lot better year than I thought. I'm a Celtics fan, so I hate them. I want them to suck. I want them to lose. I don't want them to be here at all. But they have Luka Doncic now. They obviously have LeBron James. And when you have two players like that, you never fully count them out. Um, this is a tough series. This is another tough one. This one has to go 6 or 7. I don't see it ending in five or less. Um, man, I think it really depends on what we see from Anthony Edwards in this series. I think he's the X factor. If he, uh, and really the Timberwolves as a whole, I think we know generally what we're going to see from the Lakers, but I want to see if the Timberwolves can, like they did last playoffs, get hot and then just carry that momentum. Um, so I think it really depends on Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves how they play versus how the Lakers play. Um, so with that being said, I don't think they have it. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Lakers in seven. And that will be the end of Minnesota season. And then you know maybe the most boring uh playoff series in the West, the Nuggets versus the Clippers. Um, with this one, you know, the elephant in the room. Okay, Nikola Jokic is the best player in basketball, bar none. I don't think there's anyone who is super close to him right now. Um, People say Shea. I think Shea is a big gap. I think Tatum is the second best player. I'm probably a little bit biased, but I value his all around skill set. And but even with bias and glazing, Jokic is the best player in basketball. He should have had a five-peat MVP in my opinion. And I don't particularly like the guy because he's so good. It's kind of just like you have to like you just see the stuff he does in the basketball court, and you can't really put it. It doesn't make sense, you know. A guy that like moving like that should not be able to put up those kind of stats. It doesn't make sense, right? If you just saw, it's like Tom Brady. You look at his body type, you wouldn't think he's the greatest NFL quarterback at all time. You look at Jokic, you know, he's obviously big, but he doesn't look like he's one of the most. Like if you just took a picture of him and said, "This is the one of the top five basketball players in NBA history," I'm not saying he's top five, but you wouldn't believe that. But he's on that trajectory right now, the way he's going. And I think that will be too much for the Clippers. Um, Unfortunate because Harden and Kawhi have seemed to put something together, but I think the Nuggets are just going to be too much. Mike Malone is gone, but for a matchup like this, does that really matter? Obviously, a series versus the Thunder, you want to have a head coach you're experienced with. So I don't know how far the Nuggets are going to go. Uh, yeah, firing the coach and the GM. Sorry about that. Firing your coach and GM right before the playoffs. What a move! It seems like NBA teams this year just decided that they wanted to see who can like ruin their franchise the fastest between what the Nuggets are doing and the Mavericks. The Mavericks one was a lot worse, but this is pretty dumb. Like let's I could not tell you. So, but I think they'll take it. Round two is going to be a lot more interesting. We'll see who they match up with. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I got. It was my first round playoff predictions. Um, so yeah, all right. Do let me know if you guys enjoyed. Go ahead and leave a like and comment below. And yeah, peace out.